Commissioner Elliott?
Here.
Commissioner Burns?
Here.
Commissioner Paula?
Here.
Commissioner Madrid?
Here.
Joyce Gates?
Here.
Jamal Williams?
Here.
Gilbert Salguero?
Here.
Lisa Spear?
Here.
Clyde Davis?
Here.
And Thomas Martin.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you, Vicky. Approval of the minutes of January the 24th, 2022. Anybody have any additions or corrections?
Somebody needs to get off the air. Somebody that's online. Somebody online.
Online, can they silent their video, please?
There we go. I got rid of that background.
Can you turn off your mic?
Okay.
Okay,
I move for approval of the minutes.
Second.
okay, we have a motion on approval of the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Discussion and recommendation regarding NHP Motor Speedway, Justin Howald, and I guess,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If you're going to have children in the background, I mean, appropriate place to have children in the background probably is a Parks and Rec committee, so. Since the last time we met and discussed the Ned Hout Park Motor Speedway, Jared and I have had the opportunity to go back and do research on various forms of agreements that we could potentially have out there. What we have landed on actually is a simple lease agreement. And so if you're all familiar with the current agreement that is in place, it's actually a concession agreement that really outlines what they can and cannot do with the property. It also discusses the fact that any proceeds earned, they have to put back into the facility itself, which doesn't make it necessarily all that conducive to go out and treat it like as if it was a normal business that any of us were operating, owning, and running. And so we started thinking about it, and we thought, you know what, the city of Clovis actually has other properties that we do lease out. We have a farm lease, for example, in which we allow the individual, obviously, to farm the piece of property for his own individual needs, and ultimately he could potentially make a profit off of that. We also have grazing leases, in which we allow, obviously, individuals to go out and graze certain pieces of property, which those individuals obviously can go out and potentially make profit off those as well. And so those individuals are more inclined to go out and have some motivation to actually make the lease work for themselves. And so we went back, looked at those lease agreements that we had with those individuals, and looked in, Jared actually spoke with the Hobbs city attorney, and they actually have lease agreements as well throughout their community. And so what we did is we took what they had, the best practices, we had what we had, the best practices, and combined them together to start looking at this. And we also visited with Mr. Harris and Mr. Valandry on, is this something that they think that they could potentially make work for them? What it would do is basically free them up. We would simply charge them X amount of dollars per month for lease of the land. We haven't decided what that would potentially look like yet. And then they could go do what they needed to do. You know, as we've had conversations over the last several months, we talk about how lucrative the business potentially could be there. And so it would give them the ability to go out and make it work or not make it work. As part of the consideration for the rent payments received, we've talked about the use of the equipment. They currently had the potential to utilize a loader that was originally out at the airport. We would return the loader back out to there in an as-is condition. They would be 100% responsible for all the maintenance of it. If something happened to the loader or broke down, we're not going to replace it. This is the loader that we're providing. At the end of its service life, that's the end of that potential piece of equipment. There's also a road grader that was previously out there that we would return back out to the facility, same condition, same conditions put on that. Consideration from an anti-donation standpoint would be, hey, that's part of the consideration of those rent payments coming into us. Same with the lights. So we'd factor all that into when determining what the value of the rent potentially could be on a facility. And then ultimately, it'd be up to them to make it work. And so we've had those conversations. It's something that they were interested in. We haven't finalized what the agreement would look like. We're talking about, obviously, they're currently not open. They're going to have to get insurance in place. And so there's not going to be the upfront potential for earnings at the very beginning. So we may start out with a lower rental rate, lease rate, and then phase that in as they become, are able to start hosting events, et cetera, and start bringing in some income into the operations itself. So it would be a long-term lease, probably about 15 years, and then with the option to do some renewals. So there's some ability for them if they needed to go out and get financing to make it happen. There's some security there from a bank standpoint and from a bank note standpoint, knowing that what that rental rate would look like, so they could put that pro forma together to potentially go and get that loan. As they've come to us in the past and said, hey, we need this equipment, we need that equipment. Well, this would give them that opportunity to go make their case, obviously, to a financial institution, and the city of Clovis no longer being that financial institution. So kind of wanted to bring it to this board before we got too far down this track, just kind of get a consensus from you and whether or not this is something you guys would like us to continue to move forward with. And then, obviously, if it is something you'd like to move, we'd finalize those details with Mr. Harris and Mr. Valandry, and then bring that back to you for final approval. So with that, Mr. Chairman, certainly happy to answer any questions that you have. Like I said, Mr. Sean Valandry's in the audience as well. Thank you.
Do you guys have anything to say? You want to come up here to the mic?
Do you have any questions for me or anything? Anything Justin said, we kind of discussed. We're just trying to figure out like a lease and everything. Like he said, I think the way that changing this, like he said, it kind of frees us up. Just to give you like a little more clarification, one of our biggest things is it's hard to get volunteers, as you guys know. Just ask somebody to come out when it's like 90 degrees all day and just hang out outside and not like participate in what everyone else is doing is super hard. But this kind of makes it to where we can at least, offer some kind of pay people to come out and stuff. And then same with like the other help too. And that's always been our biggest issue is getting people to help for free. It's hard to get people to help for free. But if we can put some of the money that we make back into, paying our flaggers and stuff like that, that helps. Because that's the biggest difference that I see between our track and all the other tracks we go to is they're, paying their people that are helping out and stuff. So, and the way our lease agreement is everything had to go, back into the track and stuff. So it was tough to do that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. So going back, if I remember right, wasn't there an old agreement with not bleachers, the lights? Where does that stand? Is that mute after the new agreement?
Yeah, so we would, part of the consideration and the value of what the rent would be, we'd
You're going
take
to
that into
consider the
consideration.
lights.
Yes.
Okay. And then what about, I like the idea of allowing them to, have a profit motive here. I think that definitely brings people in to want to do well.
Yeah.
Does it matter if they are a for-profit business or non-profit business? They can be whatever they want to be.
Correct, we're just entering
Okay.
into a leasing agreement.
And then what about the bleachers? Is that then all?
We are actually still working on the bleachers. We have 6 years to make a claim on the bleachers from an insurance standpoint. And so we're going back, Jared is working with our insurance company. We're reaching back out to the insurance company that the organization had at the time and to see if we can file a claim still on those bleachers.
Good. That would be great.
Okay, any questions?
Yes, that would
Any other
help a lot.
questions?
That hurt.
I have one question. I know that, thank you for following up on that bleachers. I was going to ask that same question because I'm sure that's probably pretty necessary for you guys to host events, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and for those of you, I don't know if you guys are all familiar with it, we have a car track and then we have a motocross track too. So they're, two separate actual race tracks. So the bleachers are on the car track, and that's really bad. But at the same time, at least, we're still able to run the motocross, and that's what our plan was, is try to get some money going to the motocross side, that we can get the car track back going and stuff too, so.
So do you feel that by doing this lease, then with the equipment the city's going to be able to provide too, that will help you, or will the city help get the development in a ready condition? Because I remember that was one of the concerns, was that the field had been, or the track area had been in some disrepair, and you guys were struggling with volunteers.
Yeah, and then equipment's always kind of tough too, 'cause I'm sure you guys know, like, heavy equipment is very expensive. So sometimes we'll rent stuff, but like Justin was saying, we've kind of have, and I'm not sure what Brad's agreement was, but I've dealt with the people at the airport. It was a really convenient agreement to where motocross, we don't do a whole lot in the wintertime because our pipes freeze and we don't like to deal with that stuff. Makes a lot more work. So the airport would have, the loader grader in the wintertime for the ice and stuff, and then summertime, they don't really use that equipment, so we'd have it at our track, and it was good because it would always stay maintained throughout the year. It's getting used, but at least it's staying maintained and stuff, so.
That's great.
That definitely helps. I want to say thank you for putting that in there, because me and Brad were both like, oh man, what are we gonna do without those? But the loader is a big part, because motocross, dirt track racing, just moving large amounts of dirt, that helps tremendously, because usually what we do is rent like a tracked bobcat, like a skid steer, and the bucket on that is just, you're making lots of trips, so
Right.
those two pieces of equipment help out a lot, yeah.
Great. And the other question I had was, if it's, I believe that you guys had said it was a 99-year lease or something in the past, and I was just wondering if we change this then to a 15-year lease, are we able to, does it have to be an addendum? Can we do that without sending it out for proposals or bids, or can it still go directly to them since they've invested so much into the track itself?
Correct, and so that is something that we looked into, and yes, we're in compliance with the procurement law.
Okay.
By doing so, and so yes, that is something that we could do with the renewals itself.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nobody wants to ask me to go ride dirt bikes?
Discussion and recommendation regarding the outdoor recreation trails grant. Clara Burrows.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Parks Board. The City of Clovis is looking to apply for a recreational trails plus grant. The grant application has just opened the cycle with the Economic Development Department, and we're looking to, and I've actually been speaking with Jim Glover earlier on today with Once a Day Marketing, and he has provided some information about a project that's similar to one that's in Farmington, where they created some recreational bike trails and so on. So we're looking to do something like that out at Ned Hook Park. So we'd like to put an application together to do that. So I just wanted to share that with you this evening. I do not have an idea as to cost at the moment, but in principle, that's what we're looking to recommend moving forward with. So unless you guys had some other suggestions, I think that's where we're headed
Okay, thank you, Claire.
on our bicycles.
Any questions, any comments?
Well, I've got yes, I do have a question, not necessarily regarding this, but at Ned Hook, had a citizen ask me why we've closed the gate on the south side of the park, and specifically he's interested in driving his Razor ATV into the park to go to the trails, and right now the only way to do that is to access from the North Prince, and you can't drive a ATV on a state highway.
And I'm guessing you're talking about, so off of CR-17, there's a gate that you could open up and lead
Yeah,
down to
I
there?
drove out there yesterday to look at it. There's actually two gates. You go, they're
Okay.
what, quarter mile apart or something. And he suggested that this opening be 50 inches or whatever. You know, when you're in the mountains, they narrow them down so you can't. I don't know why those gates are locked, but if it was a control issue, you know, I don't know why it would be. But
I would assume, Mr. Chairman, members of the Parks Board, Commissioner Burns, that is exactly what it is. That it's a control issue. They would open the fence, and trucks could just drive through that whole area, and but we can certainly check and look at that.
But trucks can drive through the whole area from the state highway too.
But not into the recreational area piece. You can drive, you can access the park, but you can't get onto the trail area, through the trailhead.
Oh, because of the narrow gate. Yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
And to follow up, I believe those ones on 17 are more for maintenance access, which is why they're wider in the first place, so we can get tractors, trucks, and our equipment through there. Not necessarily, it's not for public access.
Yeah, it was at one time, years ago. I remember when my son used to fly the little model airplanes. That's how we got there, is through
The
that.
model airplanes was moved.
I know.
It used to be down that road.
I know.
Right there where the shooting range is. So that was
Completely
open
aware
over
of
there.
that. Yes.
So that's not the same deal. It's not the same.
Yeah, but
gate.
that has nothing to do with this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that gate used to be open. I think it would be a good idea to give access to someone in the city that would like to drive their ATV out there and utilize the trails without getting on the state highway and therefore breaking the law.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's something we can definitely take a look at. I think I'm by our water tank there, I think is where you're referencing.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
there's a big
that's
tank
something that we
there.
can get with Russell and take a look at.
Yeah.
I know it's not paved, obviously going through that gate, I think it's
Yeah, but if you're
maybe
driving those
grass road.
ATVs, they prefer
exactly, doesn't
no
matter.
pavement.
So, yeah, and so,
Okay.
I mean, the owners of the ATVs, even though they're driving on city-owned roads, they still have to obey all the ATV rules when it comes to making sure that they're licensed properly, make sure they have the warning signs on them, make
Right.
sure they have all that
Yeah.
equipment as well.
And you
so.
do have a sign at the ATV entrance that states that. Yeah. And
Even
yes,
going down city roads, even within, because we've had the
you are correct.
conversation, yeah.
You
we
have to
gotta-
have all of the licensing
Yep.
and be insured.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with that.
I think it's something we can take a look at.
I know we opened it up for the bikes to come in through there. Because remember when we had that lady that lived over there, she was riding her bike down Norris, and we opened it up where her bike would go through there.
Yes. Miss Wheeler Sagao, Eva, who used to serve on the committee.
Yeah, she was on the Parks Board. But they also complained about people messing up the stuff in there too when they had those gates open at one time. So
We're
whatever-
happy to
whatever-
take a
whatever
look
you
at
guys
it
wanna
and
do,
bring a
you guys
recommendation
go ahead
back.
and do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
I have one question. Could we look at utilizing that outdoor recreational trails grant through New Mexico Economic Development Department? I know they were funded substantially about the Libelt Channels trails. Could we request a phased approach for that maybe?
We're actually we're waiting to hear back on our application that we put into the NMDOT for the recreational trails program on whether or not we're awarded for the design of the Liebelt trails. But once we hear back from that particular grant opportunity, if we are successful and awarded that, certainly we can get the design done. And then in future applications, this could be a potential funding source to try and get that project completed as well.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're right, Ms. Spear. The amount of funding that the state received, I think, was $7 million for this cycle. Is much larger than last time.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions? Any recommendations? Do they want to recommend it for the grant? I think we should go ahead and make a recommendation that they go ahead and go with this grant.
I'll second.
And it's for the application for the mountain
Yeah, it's just a
bikes
recommendation.
at Ned Howe Park. Correct.
Should go ahead.
Trails improves. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Update on
you.
parks projects, Russell Hooper.
Mr. Chairman, you didn't have a vote.
Oh, sorry. No, we did have a motion. I did make a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you, Claire.
You're welcome.
Updates on parks projects, Russell Hooper. Not
Mr.
Cooper,
Chairman,
Hooper.
committee members. Just a couple of updates. We have, let's see, in December, Shane Cole resigned. We have gone through the process, and we have a new park superintendent, which is John Walton. He used to be our supervisor here. He's been with the city a couple of years. I was going to bring him up, but he had issue with his dad this evening. So, no, just want to let y'all know that we do have a new park superintendent. Now we're in the process of replacing him as a supervisor. So, it's that progressive process that we're going through. But yeah, just let you know on that one. Rec administrator, we have made the offer to a young gentleman out of Houston as a rec administrator. He works now, he's currently in Houston system where as a rec person there, I guess. I forget, I'm trying to remember the college he came out of. Me and Claire, yeah, went blank on it all of a sudden. But he's got his a bachelor's degree in recreation. So it's a young gentleman with a lot of ideas. I've had several phone calls with him already, and he's like, well, why haven't y'all done this? When are y'all going to start? And it's some things like that that is really going to be bringing, I think, a positive atmosphere and attitude to it that we've been lacking here. Hopefully, he's supposed to be starting next month if we can find him a rental property in Clovis, which I think there's 4 properties in Clovis the last time I looked that you could rent. So it's kind of tough right now. Just kind of letting you know on that one. The bleachers at Roy Walker, I threw up some color things for you. With the current colors of the walls and the systems, I would like to go with a dark blue coloring for our new bleachers. Ain't pretty much anything else. We're going to have to repaint the walls, and that's not really something we're wanting to do. So it's kind of a neutral color that goes with what we've been doing. Unless anyone's obviously got a big problem with it and wants to come volunteer to help paint walls. We can go with the color change.
Dark blue is perfect.
Good deal. We've gotten the electricians out there to start giving us a bid to make sure we get all our power panels in and make sure everything's going to be working once it does get in. I just wanted to run that by y'all before I shot in the final approval on the colors. The capital outlay funding for playground equipment, we believe it passed at $375. It hasn't made all the final checks and balances to actually send me a check, but we got that, and that's going to be for 3 playgrounds in the city. Depending on how we divide it up and how we prioritize, we can actually get some good things done. As y'all know, we completed our last one, Dennis Chavez. That one came in right at 100. So we're looking at something either 3 a little bit larger or 1 a good amount larger and 2 the same size. There's some variations we can go with to actually make some good improvements and get you your wheelchair accessible that I know y'all have asked about. On the pickleball update, I think unless Claire has more information, we have put in the grant, and I believe we're just waiting to hear back.
They're finalising the grant application actually at the moment.
So that's kind of where we're at on the pickleball, and there's just fingers crossed. I believe that was it.
Thank you, Russell. Any questions?
I got one question for Russell.
Go ahead.
Russell, I had a gentleman to call me the other day, and he was interested. He's a pickleballer, and he may have checked with Claire or somebody, Bob Alcutt. He was wondering about looking at where the old swimming pool and thing used to be at next to the golf course. And is that a consideration for a pickleball court? There's lots of parking and everything, and there's not much parking at Hillcrest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Elliott. And it is where the old tennis courts were. And so I would say that the current condition of those old courts is probably in worse shape than what they are at Hillcrest. So I would say let's start at Hillcrest, but I wouldn't rule that out because as a future location, that may be someplace that we could consider putting those. They currently use it a lot for maintenance area. That's where they store the sand for when they're going to top dress the greens or the tee boxes. But there's some pretty large cracks within those old surfaces, but it's definitely someplace we could take a look at in the future.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good idea because the way I understand it, pickleball is getting to be a big deal. So it wouldn't be a tall surprise if we couldn't use one there in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's he was wanting to bring up for the Parks and Recreation, but I don't think he ever got around to getting hold of it.
And I believe he
talk to
reached
you?
out. Yeah, he reached out to Mr. Hooper.
He had come to me, and we discussed it, and like I say, it's an option. I'm not sure on the current grant, which Claire may be able to, if we were site-specific, or if we were just requesting for this. So if we were site-specific, then obviously it would be site-specific. If it was in a general request for a pickleball fund, basically, or tennis court, as the case may be, then the location may not have been even determined yet.
It's a
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
And there was another area over at Hillcrest that we were looking at. I don't know if anyone spoke to you, to the committee about it.
There's actually a volleyball, what used to be a volleyball court over by the YRB in that corner. That's probably the best slab we have. That's to be the size. We did kind of discuss in one of the other meetings that if they want to come out and stripe it, if they want to get with us and we can figure out how to stripe it, it's a first come, first served court. That occasionally I've seen people come out and string up a volleyball net and play, and most of the time it just sits in there. But that might be another option also for a shorter term.
Is that a pretty easy transition from volleyball to pickleball?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's same size court, basically.
Okay.
It's a nice area.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of putting lines on concrete.
Yeah. There are no lines on the concrete now. It's a big concrete slab that would fit pickleball.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
I think so.
Okay, for the good of the order. Okay, you have the Pappy Museum on there. You want to discuss that, Joyce?
Well, on the museum, we kind of got stopped because we're having to wait till they get the funding and everything for 4-H. And I know Claire knows a lot more about this than I do, so it'd be better if she explains it. But the High Plains Historical Foundation, we had insurance and stuff planned, but they had to put a stop to it because we're just waiting. So you know more about it, Claire.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Parks Board, Ms. Gates. I talked with Mr. Pyle just before I came in here this evening after our conversation this afternoon. Mr. Pyle advises that the Curry County received $200,000 in capital outlay funding for the museum, for the building, for upgrades. Of course, they have another project which they're working on at the Curry County Fairgrounds, which is coming in over budget like all of our projects currently. But he anticipates moving forward with this after the county fair, once the appropriation documentation is received from the state. So late this year is what he's hoping for the museum renovations.
Thank you, Claire.
At the fairgrounds, so it's exciting.
Thank you, Claire. Any questions for the Pappy Museum? Anything? Anybody else have something for the good of the order?
Just so that,
One thing, I know all of y'all know Wilma Fulgham, and Joyce probably knows her as well as anybody, but she's struggling. I think she's in hospice, isn't she, Joyce? And she hasn't got much time in this world, so keep her in your prayers, because she's struggling.
she's in the retirement ranch, I believe. Is that correct, Commissioner? I think she's at retirement ranch, correct?
Yes, she's at retirement ranch.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. We can keep her in our prayers.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order?
Just want to let you know, members of the Parks Board, that the City of Clovis has, we weren't successful with our T-Mobile grant that we applied for funding last year. We were pipped to the post by Clovis Community College, I think. Anyway, we've applied for funding again for the TV screen, outdoor movie activities at Hillcrest Park. Just to let you know.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Claire. Anything else?
I have a couple things.
You got something?
Yes, sir. Just want to announce Little League Baseball, we're up and running. We're at Clovis Western Little League. Let all your kids know that, they can sign up for Little League on either side of town here in Clovis. Our opening ceremonies will be April 2nd. Everybody will be invited out. It's going to be nice. This is actually our 69th year alive, I guess. Little League in New Mexico over at American was the first Little League in the state, and they've been there around 70 years, but they'll be 71 this year. But, we're going to be having a good season, so all the kids are invited. If you have any kids who need to be outside, sign them up to play baseball. And that's all.
Thank you, Jamal. Any questions on that?
I would say, where do they
Go ahead.
sign up?
Oh, there we go.
And the dates and the time.
Okay, you can sign up at ClovisWesternLittleLeague.com, and ClovisAmericanLittleLeague.com for Little League Baseball. We'll be having, if you want to go to Beecham Field this Saturday, we'll be having tryouts and a draft. You can show up and sign up. Adults, if you want to just come out and check it out, the park will be full. We will have, like I said, May 5th will be the last day for registration, Clovis Western Little League. You can look at us on Facebook, and like I said, just want to invite all the kids out. We're looking for community sponsors. If you want to get a field, your business, sign up on our field. I know the kids really enjoy, and we have a lot of people out there, so it's a good place for some signage. So everyone's welcome out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamal. Any questions? Okay. Next meeting date and time, 5:30, Monday, March the 21st, 2022. Wait a minute. What do you want, Claire?
Just want to let the public know that the City of Clovis is planning to hold its annual Easter egg hunt on Easter Saturday at Guy Leader. We've been working with Guy Leader. Vicky's doing a wonderful job of putting that event together for the city and raising funds. So that'll be at 9 a.m. April the 16th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. Okay, anything else? I guess that'll be my last meeting
Mine too.
on March.
March.
Yeah, March the 21st. That'll be my last meeting, Claire. Not now. Okay, we stand adjourned.